Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining the ISMTE Global event. We are going to have our session tonight, which is Technologies for Editorial Offices, a practical look at what's new. My name is Julie Nash, and I am the past president of ISMTE, and I also was a chair of the Asia Pacific region for this meeting. So thank you all so much for joining. I just wanted to give a couple housekeeping things to start off here. So we are going to hold all questions for the end. You can use the Q&A function at any point, though, to enter your questions. And also, if you have a question that you want to direct to a specific speaker, just use the @ and their name, and then we can include, get the questions to that specific speaker. If it doesn't matter, you can just post the question, and we'll let all of the speakers answer. Before we get started, I want to give a thanks to our sponsors. So AGA, Adipon, Scholastica, the American Chemical Society, Origin Reports, and Cabela's International. And with that, I want to go ahead and introduce our speakers. So to start our session today, we have Jessica Melander, and she is the Manager of Operations and Analytics at Scribendi. We have Caroline Weber, who is the Senior Product Manager of Aries Systems. And then we have Josh Stahl, who is the Product Director for Clarivate. And we are going to go ahead and get started here with Jessica.
All right, just sharing my screen here. Okay, so thanks, Julie. Hello, everybody. Welcome and thanks for joining the session. So today I'm going to walk you through some of the key trends, success factors, and challenges related to the editorial services industry and how technology plays a role in the direction of this industry. I'm going to end with a few examples of how Scribendi has embraced technology and leverage it to innovate our editorial operations. Sorry. All right, so first, a quick introduction to myself and Scribendi. So my name is Jessica, and I am responsible for operations at Scribendi. I'd also like to quickly introduce two of my colleagues, Anna, who is our AI product manager, and Enrico, who's our CEO, who will be representing Scribendi at this conference. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, Scribendi is an ISO certified online editing and proofreading company with over 2 decades of experience in the industry. We currently have over 600 editors working for us and serve thousands of clients from around the world. Okay, so let's begin by looking at some of the key trends we're seeing in the editing and proofreading industry as described in a recent IBIS World Report. So related to points number 1 and 2 on the slide, we're seeing the industry experience a rise in outsourcing and offshoring, which is facilitated by the use of the internet. Operators are able to enter the market at low costs and without geographical constraints. This is contributing to increased competition, both nationally and internationally, and especially as it relates to pricing. Another industry trend on the rise is the demand for fact-checking. The rise of the internet and social media has coincided with the ability of individuals and corporations to publish unfounded claims. Similar to the industry at large, automatic fact-checking platforms are increasing in popularity. And the final trend I'm going to highlight is industry operators are increasingly relying on computer technology and software to perform their work. The role of technology in this field has become increasingly important. At the same time, this trend has also enabled consumers and businesses to purchase computers and software for their own use and to perform their own industry services themselves, which is reducing demand for editorial services. So taking these trends into consideration, the same report highlighted some key success factors for operators within this industry. Key success factor number 1 is prompt delivery to market. Businesses need to be equipped with the ability to offer prompt, efficient service, and to meet deadlines, as this is an important priority for clients. Number 2, operators should provision a related range of goods and services. Clients are looking for this one-stop shop to meet all of their related needs. So businesses should really focus on offering a wide range of editorial products rather than specializing in one specific segment. Number 3, having a good reputation is always vital to retaining and attracting new clients, especially in this industry with high competition. And lastly, having access to the latest and most efficient technology and techniques is a key success factor. Due to the rapid technological change and adoption in this industry, operators must keep up to date with new product software releases and improve document preparation techniques. So next, let's look at some of the challenges faced by editorial companies. In September 2020, Scribendi conducted an in-depth study to identify major challenges for editorial companies, specifically in relation to handling academic papers. A number of relevant challenges were discovered that companies would need to face when editing this type of document. As you can see here on the graph on this slide, the top 5 challenges identified included managing freelancers, the cost of staff, both full-time and part-time, consistency, capacity, and quality control. Not knowing where to find resources or knowing what resources to trust also made the list. Developing and adapting new technology is important for finding solutions that can meet the market's needs in this digital age. So in an effort to overcome these challenges, most editorial companies adopt external resources to help with a number of tasks. In particular, our research found that proofreading tasks and reference formatting have been the key targets for technological support and innovation. Content review, figure formatting, and copy editing have also received attention in this regard. So let's talk a little bit about AI specifically and its challenges. The current development of technology has increasingly relied on AI. The goal with this is to perform tasks and successively improve operations based on collected information. However, the main obstacle with AI implementation is financial in nature. The necessary funding that needs to be invested in order to develop custom in-house solutions to automate processes can be quite significant. And with this investment, there is no guaranteed financial return. Even once developed, the introduction of such innovations requires either the hiring of new employees who are qualified to handle this technology or the training of current employees, and both of these options have additional costs as well. So what's available on the market? The technology landscape has been shaped to offer editorial tools that focus on some of these key areas. First would be proofreading software, which allows users to find and correct punctuation, spelling, formatting, and grammar errors. Plagiarism checking software detects content similarities between written documents and online content to users to determine whether content is original or not. And reference checking software streamlines and automates the process of formatting and correcting citations and references in documents. However, at Scribendi, we've chosen to embed technology in every stage of our workflow. Innovation helps to push improvement in handling all of our challenges. So let's talk a little bit about Scribendi and the various brands and how each of our brands approach editing technology differently. So first, Scribendi.com is our service-based company. It provides a host of editing, proofreading, and other industry-related services. It utilizes technology, including artificial intelligence and machine learning, to automate and accelerate internal processes, and also the task of editing itself. This touches on everything from hiring editors, processing and prioritizing orders, editing documents, and reviewing and assessing completed work. Scribendi.ai is our product-based AI company, and it utilizes AI and machine learning to develop tools for the public that will streamline the editorial process, from simple manual tasks to complex grammar, consistency and style improvements across multiple versions of English and multiple tones of writing. Marudo.com is our newly launched academic brand that is focused exclusively on academic clientele, and it is similar to Scribendi.com in its approach to editing technology. So let's talk a little bit about the Scribendi editing pipeline specifically. So technology plays an innovative role across Scribendi's editing pipeline. This visual summarizes how we've embedded technology and automation into many facets of our operations. When orders are received, our AI helps to determine the subject of documents and prioritizes them. and our machine learning algorithm creates prioritized pickup lists for orders based on a number of relevant factors. The automated system is capable of extracting keywords and summarizing documents to help editors quickly grasp the aim and content of the work. Once in progress, editors can use Scribendi's AI and machine learning tools in a flexible manner most suited to their approach, with suggestions provided to improve grammar, spelling, consistency, style, and even tone. AI provides both in-process revision help and a final check and validation. As you can see on the screen, the last sections of order validation and QA are dulled out. This is meant to represent that these are currently in development, but our future aim is to leverage AI technology even once orders are returned by editors. Scribendi's AI will be able to help determine potential candidates for quality assessment and can contribute to the quality assessment itself. This will significantly support our quality evaluators to help ensure that Scribendi consistently produces the highest quality of work. So next, I'm going to walk you through and take a closer look at a few of these examples. So the first example I'm going to present to you will highlight how we use technology to reduce the risk of missed deadlines. The ability to return orders on time is strongly associated with client satisfaction, and therefore reducing late orders is one of our key operational objectives. Our order queuing tool plays a big role in ensuring our clients receive their orders on time. So writers submit a huge variety of orders through Scribendi's website, and these orders can vary in type, length, complexity, and urgency as the client ultimately decides the turnaround time. We offer turnaround times as short as 4 hours and up to several weeks long. The aim of Scribendi's order queuing tool is to prioritize outstanding orders in a systematic way to optimize workflow and to lower the number of late orders. So powered by machine learning, the model was built based on several aspects. First is time aspects. So we take things into account like editor deadline, client deadline, the time since the order was placed, the day of the week, and the time of the year. Next, the model takes into account various order features. So for example, the type of document, whether this is academic, business, personal, or creative in nature. It takes into account the length of the document, the file type, so whether it's a Word document or a PDF. For example, the quality of writing and also the complexity of the client notes. Third, it takes into account price and payment aspects. So for example, the freelancer value on the order or any potential bonuses that have been applied. All right, so the second example I'm going to present to you is the Scribendi Accelerator. So the Accelerator is an AI-based grammar error correction tool that can identify errors in grammar, syntax, and punctuation before an editor even touches their keyboard. This leaves them with more time to focus on crucial tasks, which could be clarifying an author's meaning or strengthening their writing. Integrating these tools into an editor's workflow can significantly enhance their editing speed, their productivity, and their quality. The Accelerator uses a deep learning methodology based on a large data set of work completed by Scribendi's human editors spanning over more than 2 decades. The Accelerator is thus trained to approach a text and suggest the error corrections and improvements that a human editor would make, with the AI tool basically utilizing the vast historical memory of the Scribendi hive mind to predict the best revisions for a text. The Accelerator has a number of important functions, and many of these can be enabled or disabled depending on the type of document and the editor preference. So the order queuing tool and the Scribendi Accelerator are just a few of the many examples of how Scribendi utilizes technology in our editorial operations. As you can see from the industry trends, success factors, and challenges, finding ways to leverage technology is critical to long-term success in this competitive industry. And hopefully I was able to highlight some of the many ways this can be accomplished using specific examples from Scribendi. So that concludes my section of the presentation, and I'd like to pass it on to Caroline next.
Thank you. I just have to pull up my presentation. Okay, Julie, is that full screen? Okay, great. So I'm from Aries Systems, and I'm going to talk to you about how technologies are being used for editorial offices in our flagship products, Editorial Manager and Production Manager. I'm going to talk a little bit about Aries and talk about our solutions and primarily talk about our strategic initiatives because that's where most of the technology, the newer technology, is being used. So first, a little bit about Aries, and I think probably there's some customers here in the audience. Aries primarily provides workflow solutions, and we're headquartered in Massachusetts. We were founded in 1986. We're a market leader with over 8,500 publications, including multinational publishers and societies. And we're a trusted partner offering one-to-one customer support, and we have our core values of being customer-centric, focused on quality, curiosity, collaboration, leadership, and accountability. As I mentioned, our two flagship products are Editorial Manager, which is a submission and peer review tracking system, and Production Manager, which is a production tracking system. So this is a diagram that shows the end-to-end publishing solution that we offer, starting with the author submitting either directly into Editorial Manager or from an ingest partner. We're walking through all the workflow steps, initial evaluation, editor review, peer review, and then transferring to production, copy editing, typesetting, etc. So how does technology come into play with those? I'll be showing that, and I'll also be talking about our strategic initiatives, which our strategic initiative is really, as Jessica was saying, there are a wide range of goods and services out there. So our initiative is to partner with industry-leading technology providers. So our integrations are formed in a variety of ways, including mostly nowadays general or custom-built APIs, but also connections to our reporting module, older technologies like FTP, and more. And Aries has recently developed and released several new universal APIs to more easily collaborate with third-party tools. So this is our ecosystem, our expanding ecosystem of tools, because more can definitely be added here. So it's an integrated tool set all in one place. And I'm going to be walking through this diagram to show you how we connect with each of these tools. So initially, you have to get the submission into Editorial Manager for the workflow to start. So either the author can upload it directly into Editorial Manager, or manuscript and submission files can be ingested into Editorial Manager. So these would come from outside systems like preprint servers, manuscript preparation services, or publishers' author portals. And some of our ingest partners are BioArchive and medRxiv, Charlesworth Author Services, Kronos Hub, and Overleaf. And then once it gets into the Editorial Manager, in many cases, it needs to be evaluated to determine fitness of purpose for that journal and whether it's structured properly. So we have some integrations that we've had for a while. We call these our legacy integrations, and those include Xstyles by Anera, Authenticate, similarity checking, crystallography checking, artwork quality checking, and Highwire Impact Visor. We also have some internal tools for duplicate submission checking and identity confidence checking. But we've also built recently a general manuscript analysis API, and that allows for many outside tools to connect to us as long as they can code to our API. And recent integrations using this API include reference check by site, technical checking from Unsilo, and SciScore. So in a similar way, we've realized that we need to integrate with repositories so that authors can submit data sets to repositories directly through Editorial Manager, and that's done through an API. And our current integration for that is Dryad, but we're also working with future partners Figshare and Mendeley Data. So once the manuscript is in the system and ready to go into peer review, everyone knows a big problem is finding the reviewers that are willing and able to review the manuscript. So there are many outside reviewer locator services now, and we've built a general purpose reviewer finder API that allows for integration with any outside system that can code to that API. So we're currently integrated with Web of Science Reviewer Locator and publisher proprietary services, but we are definitely actively exploring more integrations. Then once that reviewer has completed their review, it's good to recognize them. So we have it integrated with reviewer recognition tools via custom APIs or even via scheduled FTP'd or emailed reports that provide publishers with the opportunity to acknowledge these researchers. So our current integrations for that include ORCID peer review deposit, Publons, and reviewer credits. So another thing that's really important, especially in the open access world that we live in now, is publication fee processing. So a long time ago, Aries decided not to get into that business, but rather to partner with outside systems that can do it. And our integration is through an API, and the outside partners are able to code to our API. And those integrations include RightsLink by CCC, Cypress from Aptara, and also publisher proprietary systems. Another larger, more general purpose API is our notification API and our web services integrations. So that allows an outside publisher or service to on-demand query any EM site for manuscript status, authors, reviewers, etc. And we also push notifications out of EM at status changes in the manuscript. And we have quite a few integrations with this now. Data Salon is one, Convey, Conflict of Interest, the OA Switchboard. We're integrated with WeChat via the Charlesworth WeChat Gateway. And of course, many publisher systems also need this data. To make it all work, though, you have to have persistent identifiers that are unique so that all these systems can talk to each other and know they're talking about the same person or the same submission. So we have really embraced persistent identifiers, and currently we're integrated with ORCID, with the Ringgold Institutional Database, Funder Registry by Crossref, and we also use the credit taxonomy that's now being run by NISO. Recently, we've enhanced this to make it easier for researchers to select the correct institution and funder, and we've provided additional prompting on screen if the author selects an unmatched institution, so that we can be sure to get that institutional identifier in for downstream processing. And the last thing I want to talk about is an XML workflow. So we have a workflow feature called Liquid Manuscript that works within our two primary products, Editorial Manager and Production Manager. And it includes a suite of tools to streamline workflow. And right now, one of those tools is the direct XML editing tool, but many more are to come. And this really encompasses our goal to move XML earlier in the publishing workflow and continue it throughout the publishing workflow. And this is going to be a multi-year, multi-phase development, but we've already completed some of it. So you may recall a similar slide earlier in the presentation, but now we're taking this Word document that's getting submitted and immediately converting it to XML. And then it's the XML version of the document that is going through the rest of the workflow. Then at the very end, either XML can be exported for online publishing or a PDF can be exported. So we think there are some key benefits of XML first workflows. So streamlining workflow processes is one big one, where all stakeholders are working on the same version of the submission, and no more annotated PDFs are being passed back and forth between systems. It's also a seamless experience for the stakeholders. The editing experience is using an intuitive user interface that looks like Word and is very Word-like with formatting, commenting, etc., but it's actually editing the underlying XML. And it's integrated into EMPM, so the user is still in Editorial Manager, Production Manager, and not being passed off to some other platform. For publishers, it'll decrease overall costs because there could be reduced reliance on XML vendors for copy editing and page composition. It'll reduce time to publication because everybody's working on the same tool within the system. We're hoping it'll lead to higher quality published research because you can use those manuscript evaluation tools I was talking about earlier. Peer review commentary is going to be in line and in context, like the commenting feature in Word, so the editor can go in and see comments from all reviewers in one place. The author can also get into that same interface and see questions and comments from reviewers and questions and comments from the editor. And finally, we're hoping to improve our user satisfaction because the author's paper will get published faster and there'll be a smoother process for proof corrections and revisions. So thank you for your attention. This is my contact information, and I look forward to your questions. And I'm going to stop sharing and pass over to Josh.
All right. Julie, you can hear me properly here? All right, thumbs up. Let me load my presentation. All right, just confirming you're seeing my presentation. Perfect. All right. So great. So thank you for having me here, Julie, and ISMTE. So my name is Josh Dahl. I'm a product director at Clarivate. My responsibility is over products and solutions for publishers and societies. And that includes my flagship product, ScholarOne, but also Reviewer Locator and some of the other Publons products and some marketing services products for specifically for reaching researchers in the web of science. So today I want to talk specifically about peer review integrity and just some of the things that are in development or that are live that are helping support publishers in protecting the integrity of the process. All right, good. So this is anyone on here, you're involved in journals, and you know that the peer review process is really one of the most important activities that a journal publisher does. It helps to build trust, and there's an expectation that it's done thoroughly, responsibly, that the actors are acting with integrity. And it definitely has an impact on the reputation of the journal and the publisher based on things that might have been flawed in the process. If you're familiar with the Tech Trends infographics, the STM Association and their STM Future Lab Forum puts together an infographic every year looking at kind of the next 3 to 5 years. And certainly research integrity and kind of the implications for the system, how research is communicated, how it's peer reviewed, bad actors, cybersecurity. That was definitely a big part that caught my eye in the 2024 version that was released earlier this year. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that and how that aligns with some of the technologies that are in play to support publishers protecting that integrity. So if you follow Retraction Watch, if you follow, really news about scholarly communication, a lot of the news that you see is about kind of bad actors, misconduct, retractions, at large. And this is just, I just grabbed 3 or 4 from Retraction Watch from the last 2 or 3 months. And this is happening more and more. It's every week, every couple of weeks, you see a big headline about wide scale retractions. And things from paper mills, it's editors who may have been involved, or peer review process that was bypassed with guest editors. It's fake peer reviewers. It's all sorts of things that are causing this sort of retraction and this sort of public withdrawal of science that was previously published and was trusted by the community. If you just do a search on Retraction Watch, so those are the keywords I used on the left. There's a Retraction Watch database that you can go and search. And you look at over the almost 14,000 retractions that are listed there for integrity-related retractions. And if you look at when they occurred and by date published, you can see that, it's a pretty steep increase in the last 10 years or so. But even more alarmingly, as you look at the last 5 years, which is that second to last column, we're almost at the same number of retractions as the 5 years prior to that. And if you think about retractions as a lagging indicator, so to speak, they're reactive. It's after it's been published, and it certainly causes reputational damage and hurts the kind of communication of science and how other researchers can work on that science. We had a global research report that we put out last year that was called research. It was focused on research integrity, and it talks a little bit about research integrity at a high level. So why is it important? Well, there's a shared ideology of integrity in scientific communication. That there's sound methodologies, that there's rigorous peer review, and that leads to trust that you can use to base further research on. If you perform that further research, it forms the next kind of layer and record of human knowledge. But of course, we also know that because how research is assessed is often judged by the record and sort of metrics that are tied to that, it certainly leads some to game the system, or maybe be less scrupulous with kind of methods they may choose to get published or to game some of the metrics. So, research integrity, how is it undermined? And what are the motivations by some of the key stakeholders? Well, of course, institutions, funders, and governments, there's increased competition for jobs, for research positions, for tenure and promotion, for funding, for grant applications. And so the institutions, funders, and governments, there's more and more applications, there's more and more input, people wanting the funding. And so they need to take methods to try and cut down the number of applications. So you look at, they're trying to make sure they're spending their money wisely. They've got the best researchers. So that creates motivations for them to look at things that are tied to the publication record. And then, of course, researchers this is make or break in some cases in terms of continuing a career in science or research. Journals and publishers, of course, are also, they're looking to publish the highest quality research, but of course, they're also inundated with submissions. And of course, the peer review process, we know it's got many challenges. And if you think about just what does a high quality journal mean? What are some of the standards that people might use to judge a high quality publication? Peer review sits right at the top of that. So, we know that there are challenges. We know that there's pressure on the system, that there's more and more kind of known cases of breaches of integrity. And so we're going to look at a few things that are in the systems and currently that are helping to support peer review integrity and helping to protect the process. So I'm going to look at a few examples, and these are mainly based on kind of my experience in my area. So one of the things that we can look at is just being able to match papers to verified researchers. So you think about fake peer review. One of the things that you really think about, one of the sources of that is that journals have to ask authors for peer review suggestions. At one point, that was over half of the journals on ScholarOne were still collecting recommendations for peer reviewers from authors. Now, that's not a bad practice per se, but there's certainly red flags that you can look at, non-institutional email addresses, people that, unverified users. But this is certainly a source of some of the challenges in research integrity and people trying to game the system. So Reviewer Locator, we've had a version of this. We're actually on our third iteration of this. We initially launched this sort of matching solution in 2015. It's at its core, it's an algorithm. It takes a paper and matches it up against a high quality database like the Web of Science, includes additional factors that are based on the Publons peer review network, the 2 million researchers there, and gives you recommendations for reviewers. So the reason this is important is, number one, this is an AI-based solution. First cut is never going to be enough. There's iterations and iterations that go into this. Even in the last year, we've made 3 or 4 different versions of the algorithm. So things like matching and flagging potential co-authoring conflicts. So I published with this person, maybe not on this paper, but on a paper from 5 years ago, or I was at an institution that was tied to that same researcher. Those are things that we can now start to surface using technology and having both a data set that's rich enough and curated enough to match up papers with prior publications. The other thing we can do is, and this is part of the verification part, is that we can link up those recommended people. We can actually show more context about who those people are. Have they peer reviewed in the past? Do they have a publication record that we can look at? Do they have other factors that we can help to show that this is a verified person? So this is just one way that some of the publishers we work with are using technology to make sure that the review process happens with integrity. Another way, and this is certainly not new and novel, but certainly for some publishers, it's especially ones that haven't operated in this way, it can be a challenge to even consider how to move into this direction, is to make the peer review process more transparent. We've had a pilot in place that was started with 5 or 6 publishers. We have about 100 journals or so on this currently. Wiley was one of our initial publisher pilots. So you can see that this is tied to a white paper or announcement they have on their website. But making the process transparent certainly helps show that there was integrity and helps to flag issues by having that available to the public, so they can read the peer review and the sort of back and forth that happens with the author, between the author, reviewer, and editor online. So they can read that right alongside the publication. So Wiley has had a great success with this. They, across their 75 journals that are using this, a vast majority have opted in to having the transparent peer review move forward. And the actual review pages get quite a bit of views. You look at 345,000 reviews of those pages for those 12,000 articles published with transparent peer reviews. So that helps to open up the process, helps to show kind of what's under the hood, and provide some more trust in the process. And so this is just an example of one of our other pilot partners, the Institute of Physics Publishing, where you can see that peer review record sits alongside the published article, can be interrogated, and you can dig deeper for more. And another thing, this lines up with some of the things that Caroline was talking about, where helping to automate checks throughout the workflow. And some of the checks, can be fairly pedestrian, so to speak. They're checking pretty minor things. We've had a pilot with what was previously on Silo, now Cactus, that was running for a number of years. It's still ongoing, where we've now started to expose those technical checks in product. And you can check some basic things like whether certain things exist in the document. But you can also dig deeper and start to look at things that could really help to show whether the peer review process, whether the authors were acting with integrity. And so just as an example of one of the things that we've launched ourselves is flagging within the ScholarOne system to identify if there's suspected unusual activity. This is something that we've developed and refined over the course of years. It looks at 30 different criteria, and it flags before publication to the editor and to publishing staff if there might be issues with the peer review process, if there might be issues with the submission. And it's the sort of thing where, we know that this has had a real impact on preventing papers from getting published that had problems with the process, so to speak. So this is a tool that we know is in use by about 20% of our journals, and we've been able to help those publishers not only with flagging papers before they get published, but also helping with investigations when it's the sort of case where they have to retroactively review a claim of fraud. And finally, this is a pretty basic thing. In your everyday life, in your social media applications, in your banking applications, you see this all the time. Verify who you are. You're coming in, you have credentials. Verify that you are who you say you are, that you can give me some trust that you're the person that has the contact information for this account. Again, this is from direct experience working with publishers. The state of cybersecurity is fraught. Ransomware, phishing attempts, social engineering, and providing some additional layers of protection is really key to just locking down the system. So this is something that we launched just recently for protecting high permissioned users on ScholarOne journals. So with that, these are just a few things that are in play. Peer review integrity is key though, and thank you for your time.
Thank you all so much. And so I did want to direct anyone over to the questions. So we don't have anything as of yet. So please do enter any questions that you may have. We are kind of toward the end of time, but we'd like to try and get through a couple questions if anyone has any. I was just going to put a quick question out to the full group. And, it's a little bit of a looking into the future, but if each of you were to think of some sort of technology that you see peer review going into in maybe the next 5 years, what would your take, either a specific technology or just a topic? And if we want to start with Jessica, we can go back through the order of the speakers. Jessica, you're on mute.
Good call. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah.
I think what was all related, kind of some connections I saw throughout each of our presentations, what I think would kind of speak to what we're seeing in the future is some of those things that Josh spoke about, and it relates to kind of what I spoke about, where you're starting to use technology to implement checks and like to make sure that things are really what they say they are. As he pointed out, things are getting more and more complicated, and we need to kind of stay ahead of some of these challenges as well. So it kind of in particular with us in AI, developing tools where we can check quality before it gets to the client, check the peer review quality before it gets to the journal publication thing. So I see it kind of moving towards like these kind of proactive approaches of how we can anticipate these challenges and problems before they actually reach the consumer and the client in the end.
Okay. Caroline, what do you think?
I would definitely agree with that. I was thinking AI myself, and I think what is needed to facilitate AI is really a lot of APIs to reach out to external services that are going to perform their own AI perhaps and send it back, in addition to doing AI within your own tool.
Yeah, and I would just, it's like you brought us all together and we knew what we were going to say, similar things. I think both of those topics is, you've seen a lot more modularity with systems these days. We're doing the same thing on the ScholarOne front in terms of plug and play, different third parties, proprietary algorithms that publishers are developing. And so the sort of API ecosystem is really starting to, and it's been in place, but it's really starting to take off in the publishing. And I would say that just opens it up to be able to start plugging in services, whether it's as a homegrown data set that you have as a publisher, whether it's you're plugging into 12 million records that have been curated. It's really opening up and connecting all these different systems together and then starting to use AI to solve very specific use case questions. I think the sort of like days, I remember when we started the pilot with Unsilo a few years ago, the thought was, okay, we're going to just start creating AI solutions for editorial checks. That was not the approach. You need to answer specific questions and then build from there. So I think we're going to start to see more of those use cases solved and plugged into systems.
Great. So we do have a couple questions now. So we'll go through these 3 that are in here now. The first one is to Josh. And Anka wants to know if there will be an option to verify who you are for authors and reviewers in ScholarOne.
That's in the works a bit. Where one of the major challenges with these systems, you think about how they formed about 20 years ago when publishers were coming from paper systems to online systems. Everyone, they protect their data. They don't want to share researchers. This is my set of researchers, and so everyone created these sort of mini databases of users. And so I think the ability to link people together and tie them to whether it's a single profile or single login, and what that is, I think that's definitely like the direction we're heading in for sure. And being able to verify that, tie that to verified research records is where we want to be in the future.
Great. So here's a question from Richard. With the pressure to reduce APCs, can journals afford all these services? It's not directed to anyone in particular, so whoever wants to take it.
Yes. It does vary. There's costs to a lot of the services. I think that part of it is that platform providers are subsidizing some of it with themselves, so partnering with solutions and plugging it into the platform themselves. And so they're taking on the cost because they didn't have to do the development. In other cases, you're absolutely right. There's going to be a question long-term about cost versus benefit. I think if you can tie the cost to actual manpower, it takes less time to do things. We don't have to hire an extra group of people to do this. I think it starts to justify itself. But I agree that the sort of ROI cost benefit, I think that's part of the reason why it's taken so long for some of these solutions to really take off, is just we need to have evidence that it's going to save time and money.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that question? All right, so the last question is for Caroline, and this is from Belinda. We have increasing non-response to review invitations in Editorial Manager. The more secure hospital and institution servers become, the less likely invitations are likely to make it through. Is this something Aries is working on?
So that's, I don't want to say the downside, but the other side of all this strict security is that things get caught in spam filters that are not really spam. We are definitely aware of it, and we have put some things in place in the past to try and get around it. But I would suggest that maybe we can get back to you with some more specifics. I'll get your account coordinator to get back to you and give you some more specifics and find out maybe a little bit more about the exact situation, so maybe we can do something about it.
Great. Thanks, Carolyn. So we're going to wrap up our session here. Thanks so much to everyone who stayed with us if you're in the US or joined us from the Asia Pacific region. This session, as all our sessions, will be recorded. So if you do want to listen to anything later, it will be available hopefully quickly after we finish up here. So I just wanted to quickly say, if you are social media inclined, please do follow us at the hashtag ISMTE Global, and you can find and share all of our content there. And be sure to stop by the various exchange forums and opportunities we have for our colleagues to communicate, even though it's on a virtual level this year. And thank you again to our speakers. I appreciate all your time and effort. I thought this was an excellent session, and hopefully will be viewed many times from people in other time zones. So Jessica, Josh, Caroline, thank you so much for your help.
Thanks much, Julie.
Yep. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.